Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 7, Text 56, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhakti Swami Prabhupada. Translation. With all respect, Daksha worshipped Lord Shiva with his share of the remnants of the yajna. After finishing the ritualistic sacrificial activities, he satisfied all the other demigods and the other people assembled there. Then, after finishing all these duties with the priests, he took a bath and was fully satisfied. Purport. Lord Rudra Shiva was properly worshipped with his share of the remnants of the yajna. Yajna is Vishnu, and whatever prasad is offered to Vishnu is offered to everyone, even to Lord Shiva. Sridhar Swami also comments in this connection. Svena Bhagena, the remnants of the yajna are offered to all the demigods and others. Srila Prabhupada writes, yajna is Vishnu, and whatever prasad is offered to Vishnu is offered to everyone, even to Lord Shiva. Why even to Lord Shiva? Elsewhere, in a Chaitanya Charitamrita purport, Srila Prabhupada writes that the prasad is offered to all living beings, even to the dogs. Want to adjust this? Hare Krishna. Prasad is offered even to the dogs, and here it's written even to Lord Shiva. So when we write even to the dogs, that means that the position of the dog is so low that you might think that prasad should not be offered to him, to the dog. But yes, it's offered even to the dog. And even to Lord Shiva means that even though Lord Shiva is so elevated, still it's offered to him. So the even to here is stated with a different understanding, different context. Prasad is for everyone. Prasad means mercy. Mercy goes down. How far down does it go? There's no end to how far down it goes, but it begins at the top. Everyone who's lower can begin to get the mercy. So Lord Shiva, even though he's so high, he also is expecting the mercy, or waiting for the mercy, hoping for the mercy of Lord Vishnu. So even to Lord Shiva, even though Lord Shiva is so elevated, he's also a Vaishnava. And that actually is the main characteristic of his being elevated. It's not that he's Bholanath or Bhutanath or Pashupati. Different names are there for Lord Shiva. Durgesh, Gaurinath, these are different names which describe some of the characteristics of Lord Shiva. The Lord of the fools, the Lord of the ghosts, the Lord of the animals, the husband of Durga. But these are not the reasons that he is so glorious. He is so glorious in the eyes of fools for being their Lord. And to be the master of Durga, that's also a very elevated position, considering that she's in charge of the whole material cosmos. Srishti, Sthiti, Pralaya, Sadhana, Shakti Reka. She is the Shakti by which the creation, maintenance and destruction of the material world, it's all in her jurisdiction. She's so powerful. But she is under the jurisdiction of Lord Shiva. She's under his control. So how great is Lord Shiva? But that is not the greatest greatness of Lord Shiva. The greatest greatness of Lord Shiva is that he's a great Vaishnava. So Vaishnavas, they may worship Lord Shiva, but they do so in a different way, in a different manner to those who are fools. Foolish people worship Lord Shiva hoping for some material benefit, or hoping for liberation from this material world, or some of them desire to be him, or as great as him, or greater than him. Some people chant Shivoham. It's a well-known chant. They think they've already become him. Or we have the case of Vikasa, who took a benediction from Lord Shiva, that anyone whose head that Vikasa touched with his hand, that head would immediately crack into thousands of pieces. So Vikasa wanted to use that to destroy Lord Shiva so that he could take over Durga. Then he could really enjoy. He was thinking, if I can get charge of Parvati, then I can really enjoy. She can cook up whatever she can arrange all enjoyment for me. Lord Shiva himself is not the enjoyer of Durga. We know there are names: Sita Raman, Radha Raman, Rukmini Raman. The enjoyer or the pleasure of Sita, namely Lord Rama, or Radha and Rukmini, who is the pleasure, or who himself enjoys them. He is the enjoyer. Srila Prabhupada often gave this example. Prakriti and Purush. Prakriti is the female energy is enjoyed. Krishna is the supreme enjoyer. He is Purush. And all other living beings in relationship to him are Prakriti. Lord Shiva is the supreme male outside of the Vaikuntha region. He is seen as the supreme male, but he doesn't take the role of an enjoyer. We don't hear the name Durga Raman. He's not enjoying Durga. He has all facility to enjoy, but he is known as the greatest tapasvi. Why is he engaging in tapasya? Well, why does anyone engage in tapasya? People engage in tapasya to get something, either material or spiritual. Hiranyakashipu engaged in tapasya to get the power to lord over the universe. And spiritualists, yogis, they engage in tapasya to get free from this material world, to develop vairagya. Because they or we have attachment to this material world, they practice tapasya so that they don't tapasya involves negation of sensory interactions with the sense object. So the idea is that one loses a taste loses raga, loses attachment to this material world by not interacting with the sense objects. One loses a taste for the sense objects by not interacting with them. And by performing tapasya, one gets strength to resist the sensual temptations. So people perform tapasya, the spiritualists, They perform tapasya to get spiritual energy. But Lord Shiva, he doesn't have to do that. There are two kinds of tapasvis. One is a sadhak and one is a siddha. Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, he is Sakshat Vairagya Murti. He is the very form of, we say the word renunciation. That's an English word. But the Sanskrit word is Vairagya. Means not having attachment. Renunciation, the word suggests that you have something and you reject it. But in the case of Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, he never had any attachment to this material world. Superficially, it might have seemed like that in his family life. He was a grains broker. But that's all we know about him, is that he was born in Faridpur district of East Bengal, that he was a grains broker and his name was Vangshidas. And that's all we know. He was married, his wife died when he was young. We don't know whether he had any children or not. That's all we know about his former life. So he renounced that, but we don't have any record of him being an enjoyer of this material world. He's known as Sakshat Vairagya Murti. He's so renounced that practically he didn't eat, or if he ate, it was maybe some rice, not even chipped rice, just the whole grains, and he'd soak it in Ganges water. It's inedible actually. But he might take that sometimes. He was not the husk, just I didn't hear that. It's just like the uncooked rice. Chow, uncooked. So he was absorbed in bhajananandi. He was absorbed in worshipping Krishna. His vairagya, he renounced the association of worldly people. He didn't want people coming and disturbing him. So eventually he got fed up because people were coming for blessings. They thought he's got a lot of power, so let me go to him for blessings. So he got fed up of this and he went to perform his bhajan in a latrine. Because he thought, if I go there, people will think it's impure and they won't come and disturb me. So his renunciation is not that he's really trying hard to get detached from this material world. It's just his renunciation is on a completely different platform. He from the beginning has absolutely no interest in this material world. He's simply absorbed in bhajan. Lord Shiva is like that also. He's performing tapasya. It's not that he's got anything to gain from that, either materially or spiritually. Materially, what has he got to gain? He's got everything materially that anyone could want. Durga Devi is she who provides all facilities for every single conditioned soul to fulfill their material desires. Mother Durga, what a mother. The mother, she tries to make the child happy by feeding him and comforting him and giving him all facilities. So Durga is the mother of all conditioned souls. She provides facilities for everyone according to what they deserve and what they desire. So even the great demigods with their Vishala, Swarga Sukha, this word is used in Bhagavad-gita. Tetang Bhuktva Swarga Lokam Vishalam. They enjoy Vishal and tremendous happiness, material happiness in the heavenly planets. It's all provided by the agency of Durga Devi. And Lord Shiva has no interest in any of it. She's providing even for the worms in stool their happiness. Then what will she provide for her husband? She's willing to provide anything. But he has no interest. He's engaged in tapasya, not tapasya of the sadhak, but simply because his tapasya is just because he has no interest in enjoying anything. So therefore he's sitting and meditating on sankarsha. So Lord Shiva, he is a great devotee. That is his greatness. A Vaishnava may worship Lord Shiva with this understanding that he is a great Vaishnava. He should be respected as such. The worship of Lord Shiva by anyone but a Vaishnava is based on a misunderstanding. And they won't actually get Lord Shiva's full mercy. Because his full mercy is manifested not in material benedictions, not in the quasi-spiritual benedictions of the false idea of being able to merge into some impersonal Brahman. But his real benediction is as a Vaishnava, that he himself aspires for service to the gopis. Therefore he's known as Gopishwar. He's the protector of the Rasa Mandala. He doesn't allow materialistic people, or even anyone who has any trace of any desire than to satisfy Krishna. They're not allowed into the Rasa Mandal. He's protecting the Dham of Vrindavan. No one can enter into Vrindavan without the mercy of Lord Shiva and all the Acharyas, all the Vaishnavas. Even if one can superficially enter by buying a ticket on the train and then taking a taxi from Mathura station to Vrindavan, no one can actually enter there without the permission of Lord Shiva. One may think, I went to Vrindavan, I took some photos, I ate in the restaurant, it was nice. And then I went in my AC room and enjoyed myself. But entrance into Vrindavan is by the mercy of Lord Shiva, who sets the example of having no material desires. He is worshipable for that. That in itself is worshipable. Srila Prabhupada once asked that why are all these people worshipping me? He himself asked the question, rhetorical question. And he gave the answer, because I have no sex desire. Lord Shiva has no sex desire. Srila Prabhupada often gave the example that struck him when he was learning at school in the Sanskrit class. They were reading from Kalidas's Kumara Sambhav, which means the birth of Kumar, Kartikeya, how Kartikeya came to be born. It's a play by Kalidas, Sanskrit play. So they were studying that at school, how the Parvati, Himavati, she was coaxed by the demigods to go and worship Lord Shiva, to try to seduce him. It's a very dangerous mission, because one demigod already got scorched for doing so. He lost his body. He became known as Ananga, the Kamadev, Cupid. So Parvati was sent to seduce, practically to seduce Lord Shiva. And she found him engaged in deep meditation. And she is the most beautiful woman. She is the sum total of all beauty. within this material world. Her beauty, of course, doesn't even... Well, it mirrors, it's a reflection of that of Radha. She is the most beautiful and most attractive woman, and she touched the genital of Lord Shiva, and he was not disturbed. So Srila Prabhupada gave this example of dhira, one who is not disturbed even in the presence of all promptings. What's the word? All provocation. That's the word. Tapasvi, he tries to remove himself from all sense objects so that he won't be provoked to enjoy them. Sangat sanjayate kamaha. We tend to become attached to whatever we come in contact with. We desire. It's the nature of material desire. Whatever we come in contact with, we want it. We want to enjoy it. Just like a child. Whatever a child sees, he wants to pick it up and put it in his mouth. Or he wants it, even if it's not good for him. There may be some broken glass and he'll pick it up and play with it. So he becomes attached to that, even though it's not good for him. So in the same way, transcendentalists, they understand that this material attraction, it's not good for me, so I should avoid it, because when I come in contact with it, I become provoked by it. So therefore, brahmacharis, they don't associate very much with women, or even anyone even grihastas, who are trying to become spiritually advanced. They don't associate with women more than necessary. For a grihasta, what's necessary is different to a brahmachari. They don't spend all their time hanging around with women. Or if one is trying to control the tongue, then he may say, I'm not going to, there's a big feast, I'm not going, because I don't want to eat so many nice foods. So one may, like Lord Shiva, or so many yogis, they'll go to the Himalayas and live in a cave. It's very difficult to find any sense objects in a cave. There's no feasts in a cave, generally speaking. It's not expected that you'll find beautiful women in a cave, or money, or anything enjoyable in a cave. So a cave is good for spiritual life, to go and live in a cave or live in a forest. So one tries to detach himself from those things. But one who, even in the presence of so many stimulations possible, or what would normally be considered stimulations for sense enjoyment, and is still not disturbed, that is a greater yogi. That's why Srila Prabhupada, he wrote to one of his grihasta disciples, that if you have a beautiful wife, young and beautiful wife, who is willing to satisfy your desires, but even then, if you do not indulge in sexual enjoyment, then you're more than a sannyasi. A self-controlled grihasta is more than a sannyasi, Srila Prabhupada wrote. Because a sannyasi, he removes himself from the possibility of sexual interaction. But a householder who has that possibility but still does not do so, he is more. Lord Shiva is, in that sense, more than a sannyasi, because he has the sum total of all beauty of the material world as his wife, but he's not interested in enjoying her. He does so also, but that's also for a purpose. One is Kumar Sambhava, that's already stated, for giving birth to Kartikeya. And even before that, the whole material world, it's an interaction of Purush and Prakriti. That, I was saying before, Purush is Krishna and Prakriti is everything else. Everything else is to be enjoyed by Krishna. So Krishna is the supreme male, or the only male, if we want to, in purely ontological terms. Krishna is the only male, and all others are Prakriti. But within this material world, Purush Prakriti, they combine. Lord Shiva combines with Durga Devi, and that is by that means the living beings attain their forms within this material world. So Lord Shiva, he does perform his grihastha duty of joining with his wife, but that's control, only for specific purpose, for service to Lord Vishnu. He has a service to do, and even that sexual activity, if that's performed as a service, then dharma viruddho bhuteshu kamosmi bharatarsha. If one performs sexual activities according to the tenets of dharma, that means not simply animalistically, but for the sake of fulfilling dharma, putrate kriyate bharya, for fulfilling the dharma that every man should beget within the womb of his wife a son, then that sex is considered non-different from Krishna. It's a representation of Krishna. So Lord Shiva, he's glorious for his sense control. Of course, in another place, Srila Prabhupada, he compares Thakur Haridas with Lord Shiva. Thakur Haridas was more sense-controlled than Lord Shiva, because Lord Shiva eventually did agree to Parvati's proposal to marry her. Whereas Haridas, who was tempted by the prostitute and tempted by Durga Devi herself, he didn't agree to their propositions. Durga Devi told, after tempting Haridas, she told Haridas that, I've got everyone under my control in this material world. I've tempted everyone. Through various female forms, I've tempted everyone in this material world. But you have defeated me. Therefore, she took initiation from Thakur Haridas. Similarly, Narayan Rishi, they came to this world to show the path of tapasya for aspiring transcendentalists. Lord Indra became afraid and sent beautiful girls, apsaras, to tempt Narayan Rishi. He saw beautiful girls surrounding him. He understood what was going on. They said, "Oh, you like beautiful girls? Here, have some more." And by his own potency, he created more beautiful girls. More of them and more beautiful than the ones sent by Indra. He said, "You like beautiful girls? Here, I can produce beautiful girls also. Take one. What one do you like? Take one." He wasn't disturbed. Krishna is the perfect brahmachari. That doesn't seem to make sense, does it? We always hear how accusations of Krishna being the perfect vyabhichari. Vyabhichari is the opposite of brahmachari. But he is, because he has no attachment to any material body. But he is subjugated not exactly by the beauty of the gopis, or rather the beauty of the gopis is non-different from the beauty of their fully surrendered service to Him. Otherwise he cannot be captivated by beauty. As the example is given, just like someone who makes sweets. He's not attracted by, everyone comes to the sweet shop, look at that, let's get some of that. Oh, what about that one there? Everyone's enthusiastic when they come to the sweet shop. But the sweet maker, every day he makes, so many kilos of sweets. He doesn't have attraction for that. He's aptakama, one who has the ability to fulfill all his desires. So there are two names for Krishna. There are many names for Krishna, but two names in this regard. Atma-rama and Apta-kama. Atma-rama means anyway he's satisfied in himself. And Apta-kama means that all his desires are already fulfilled. Whatever desires, they're already fulfilled. So he has no... It's a great misunderstanding to think that Krishna is attracted in any mundane way to the beauty of the gopis or the beauties of the queens of Dwarka or the Lakshmis. He's attracted. But that attraction is not any mundane attraction, and he can leave. Even he left the Ras Leela. Not that he was, of course he knew he was going to come back, but it just showed that he wasn't bound up by any feminine attraction. He is the perfect brahmachari. Krishna has no material, no desire. We can say he has no desires and all desires. Both things are true. All contradictions are possible in him. So Lord Shiva, he is completely self-controlled. But that is not his greatest greatness. People, when they see a sadhu, someone who's very renounced, the people generally think real sadhu is one who has... There are so many sadhus they live in a cave, they only eat one berry every 3 days or something like this. They're saying, this is very renounced. This is a real sadhu. Or they never get angry, they only smile. This is a real sadhu. But they don't know that a real sadhu is one who is fully absorbed in serving Krishna. When Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, before he accepted sannyas, he was living at Vrajapatan in Mayapur, chanting the holy names of Krishna, overseeing the affairs of the Jogpit, which had been entrusted to him by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Bhaktivinoda Thakur. A few young men came to him at that time and became his disciples during that period when he was living there. Now he was overseeing the affairs of the Yogapit, which means arranging for funds, dealing with the local people. He was trying to acquire some lands, the accounts, all these pounds, shillings and pence affairs. Or in those days, rupees, annas and pi. That's what it was. So he was overseeing this. Now one young man came to him and thought, well, this is a real sadhu. He's living here, very renounced. But that young man, after some time, he thought, what is this? He's counting, every day I see him, he's counting money, and he's talking all these legal matters. So, this isn't for me. He left it. He thought, I'll go over the river and see Gaur Kishore Das Babaji. He's his guru, so he must be better than him, and he's not managing any worldly affairs. He was a rascal for thinking like that. Anyone who thinks that one who is fully engaged in the service of Krishna, managing rupees and paisa, is less renounced than someone who lives in a cave and only eats one berry every 3 days. He's misunderstood. He doesn't know what is actual renunciation, yukta vairagya, to live in this world and use everything in the service of Krishna. This idea, one never becomes upset, because if you become upset, that means you're attached to something, because that's described in Bhagavad-gita, sangat sanjayate kamat krodho vijayate. Anger comes from attachment. So one who's not attached to anything, he never becomes angry. The sadhu never becomes angry. We saw Srila Prabhupada become angry so many times. Why is that? Because of his attachment. But that was his attachment to Krishna. Because Srila Prabhupada couldn't tolerate even one paisa being misspent for Krishna, he would become so angry at his disciples for misspending even a penny. So that anger is millions, unlimitedly better than the so-called sadhu who just smiles and says everything okay, it doesn't matter. To Srila Prabhupada it mattered. It mattered very much because Krishna mattered very much to him. He didn't see Krishna only as the deity or only talking about pastimes of Krishna, but he saw everything is Krishna's and everything is meant to be used in the service of Krishna, and misuse of anything that is sinful. That was his bhakti. So Lord Shiva, his greatness is not simply because he's detached. That is appreciated by people who are attached to this material world. But to Lord Shiva, that attachment or detachment, or to any Vaishnava, it's not very meaningful. Whether one is attached to this material world or detached, it's not a question for them. They're only interested in being attached to Krishna. And by their attachment to Krishna, they're automatically detached from the material world for their own sense enjoyment. They have nothing to enjoy in this world. But at the same time, they're very attached to everything in the world because they see this is Krishna's energy. This should not be used for sense enjoyment. This should be used for Krishna. So they may appear to be very attached. But why is he making a big fuss over just a few paisa? A few paisa we don't even bother about it. We don't bother about it. But Prabhupada bothered about it. He was very bothered about it. Because one thing he didn't want to see anything in the material world misused, especially those things that had been offered for the service of Krishna. And he was training his disciples. He didn't want them to have the mentality that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether the deities are served properly or not. It doesn't matter if money is misspent. It doesn't matter about anything. It just matters that we have praying. But where is the praying if nothing matters? Praying is not just some idea floating in the heads of sentimental people. Praying has its basis of Krishna te akela cheshta. Everything should be done for everything. Everything is meant for the pleasure of Krishna. Everything. Not that I have my prem and I have my bhog. There's no bhog. For a devotee, he has no attitude of wanting to enjoy this material world, even slightly, and therefore, because he has completely turned his desires toward serving Krishna, therefore Bhakti Devi, she agrees to enter his heart. Bhakti Devi blesses him that you are a worthy candidate to receive the gift of bhakti. So Lord Shiva is misunderstood by everyone in the material world, and everyone in the material world misunderstands everything. They misunderstand everything is meant for my enjoyment. And they also think Lord Shiva is meant for my enjoyment, and they also think Krishna is meant for my enjoyment. But Lord Shiva understands that I am meant for Krishna's enjoyment. Therefore he has no interest in material enjoyment, and he's only interested in Krishna's enjoyment. But foolish people misunderstand him to be a powerful agent for assisting their foolish desires for sense gratification. So the Srimad Bhagavatam is the Amala Purana. There is no discussion of how anyone is meant to enjoy this material world. So these narrations are given within Srimad Bhagavatam just so that we can develop this atra jnana vairagya bhakti sahitam naishkamyam avishkritam. Within this Srimad Bhagavatam, we gain knowledge. We don't have knowledge. We are covered by non-knowledge. Ajnanatimirandhasya. We're in this material world, our knowledge is covered by non-knowledge, which doesn't mean nothing. Ajnana, or ignorance, it doesn't mean literally no knowledge, but it means a misperception. That which is perceived with a certain world view which is wrong. It's an incorrect perception. So therefore our knowledge that I and everyone and everything is meant for Krishna's pleasure is covered by the non-knowledge or the anti-knowledge of thinking I and everything in this material world are meant for personal enjoyment. So Srimad Bhagavatam gives Gyan, and from Gyan automatically comes Vairagya. Actual Vairagya. So these are the two sons, or the two manifestations of bhakti. Actually, Gyan and Vairagya, they do not lead to bhakti. Gyan and Vairagya, they come from bhakti. Then how, by studying Srimad Bhagavatam, by getting knowledge, we'll get renunciation. Atra jnana vairagya bhakti sahitam naishkanyam avishkrita. So that bhakti, it may appear to come from Gyan and Vairagya, but actually the kind of Gyan and Vairagya, or the actual Gyan and Vairagya that give rise to bhakti, that is the Gyan and Vairagya which are offered from Srimad Bhagavatam through the acharyas. So the bhakti current is always there. This Gyan and Vairagya are rejected from bhakti. That means the Gyan and Vairagya without bhakti. Otherwise Gyan and Vairagya with bhakti, that's coming with the current of bhakti given by the acharyas. That gives rise to bhakti, and bhakti gives full rise to full jnana and vairagya. So this Srimad Bhagavatam, it's not simply some stories, but within this, jnana vairagya bhakti sahitam naishkamyam avishkritam, to be discovered within Srimad Bhagavatam. Discover means it's already there. But we have to access the Srimad Bhagavatam through the acharyas who are giving that. Otherwise it will just be stories. We have to, therefore we should read Prabhupada's books, not Gita Press books, for instance, as I know are quite popular among some devotees to read Gita Press books, or Gita Press edition of Srimad Bhagavatam. But you may get the literal translation, but you won't get from that, it's a literal translation. It's not the understanding which is given by the acharyas is not there. Therefore we won't get it. All of Srimad Bhagavatam directs us ultimately to Radha. You won't find her in a translation. She's not, a literal translation you won't find Radha. But the acharyas will say, look, there she is. Here she is. So Srimad Bhagavatam has to be understood through the devotees. Lord Shiva, His greatness is that He is a devotee. Not that He's a vairagi. That He's a vairagi means He's a devotee. Every devotee is a vairagi. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, counting the pennies, is the greatest vairagi. Every devotee is a vairagi. But the outward manifestation of renunciation is very attractive to the fools. Therefore Lord Shiva is Bholanath. They're attracted to Him so that He may gradually let them in on the secret of what is His real greatness. Is His attachment to Lord Vishnu. Is there any question, please? Comment? Yeah. Alright, tell me. Person went to Gaur Kishore Das Babaji. Finished the story. Everyone likes stories. Well, the story is he became an imitator of Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, and he fell down. He was imitating his vairagya. The vairagya of one who is, that I was saying, there's two kinds of vairagis. One who's trying to become detached from the material world, and one he's automatically a vairagi because he has no interest in the material world. So Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj's renunciation, he would joke, what are these people trying to imitate him? But they can't get what he had by imitating. What he has is this Namo Gaura Sakshadvar Vipralamba Rasambodhe Padambuja. He's the ocean of Vipralamba Rasa. So you can't get that simply by imitating him. He accepted Siddhanta Saraswati as his disciple. Siddhanta Saraswati, compared to all these Babajis who are hanging around Gaur Kishore, he looked like a complete materialist. He was a city boy. He was employed. He was a working man. He was a scholar of astronomy. He looked like a materialist, but Gaur Kishore accepted him as his disciple. And he didn't accept any others. How do we understand? The what? The Mohini Murti story? Well, that's another whole story. How do we understand it? Did you read it in Bhagavatam, 8th canto? Did you read it? So, what does Prabhupada say? How are we to understand it? We understand it through the acharyas. We understand it through Prabhupada. Did you read the Gita Press edition? You won't understand it by reading the Gita Press edition. You'll be totally bewildered. Because there's no explanation. Srimad Bhagavatam is not meant to be just read. We're supposed to hear it from the Acharya. So Srila Prabhupada has explained, following the purports of the previous Acharyas. What did he say there? Can you remember? You don't remember. This is a kind of Leela in which Lord Shiva, who could not be, this Leela of Mohini Murti, bewildering Lord Shiva, is showing the greatness of Lord Shiva. By doing this, Lord Vishnu is showing the greatness of Lord Shiva, by showing that Lord Shiva cannot be bewildered by anyone except Lord Vishnu. That's it in brief. There are many other things to say. Yeah, give the...
Maharaj, I have two questions to make if I can ask. Number one, we are talking about the goal of Srimad Bhagavatam is to approach Srimati Radharani towards state of election.
That's the ultimate goal, yeah. That's those who, yeah, there are various stages. You may get off the train at various stations, but if you stay on, that's where we'll go.
If that is the case, in the entire Srimad Bhagavatam, only one time mentioned about Radharani, and that also indirectly. Why?
No, more than once indirectly. More than once. Yeah. But the whole Brahma Gita is also Radha Lila, although her name isn't mentioned. Yeah, then what's the question?
My point is that if I is goal, then why is mentioned hardly one time? That also indirectly by Srila Goswami.
Did everyone hear the question? If the ultimate goal of Srimad Bhagavatam is understanding the position of Srimati Radharani, then why is she not mentioned directly in Srimad Bhagavatam? What makes you think she's not mentioned directly in Srimad Bhagavatam? You never read Srimad Bhagavatam, that's right.
Yes, Maharaj, I do.
There's a key required. She's there. What is that? Prati shloke prati okare nana artha koi. Krishna tulla bhagavat vibhu sarvashroy prati shloke prati okare nana artha koi. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said about Srimad Bhagavatam that Bhagavatam is equal to Krishna. Like Krishna, it is all-powerful and giving shelter to all, or sarvashray. In every verse and every syllable there are various meanings. So, we have to learn Bhagavatam from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That's why Prabhupada, at the beginning of his Bhagavad Bhaktivedanta purports, put the life of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We have to understand Bhagavatam through Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that Bhagavatam, every verse, every syllable has various meanings. He also says Bhagavatam is sarvashray. So there are various subjects of Srimad Bhagavatam. The ultimate subject is ashray, the shelter. So generally that shelter is understood to mean Krishna. He's the shelter of all beings. But the ultimate ashray tattva is the ashray vigraha, Radharani, because she's the ashraya, or the receptacle of Krishna prema, who is more than Krishna. After reading all the Bhagavatam from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's commentary Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's understanding is not told widely, because even the Vaishnavas will say we are blasphemous. If we say directly, what is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's understanding? They'll say it is blasphemy. We go through, every moment we're always teaching Krishna is supreme, Krishna is supreme, Krishna is supreme. Then when we got it finally in our heads that Krishna is supreme, I'm not supreme, Krishna is supreme, I have to surrender to Him, then we take someone in a little room and tell them actually Krishna is not supreme. But it's not told everywhere. The Ashray Tattva is Radharani. She is the shelter of Krishna Prem, who is more than Krishna. So it's not told everywhere. Not meant for everywhere. It's also a very, even philosophically, it's a very subtle point. I mean, people, what should be simple to understand, that Krishna is supreme. People, how much we have to sweat blood to try to get people to understand that, and to get ourselves to understand that. But the point that Krishna is subordinate to Radha is, it's like going from classical physics to quantum physics. It's just like a complete, you spend all these years studying and you got it in your head, and all of a sudden they say, all right, now just forget all of that, and now we're going somewhere else. It's a quantum leap.
My soft question to this is, first thing is the series indirectly mentioned, and then the second thing.
Right in the beginning of Bhagavatam. What is the first? Jamadyasya yaton vyad itaratas charseshu abhignasvara. So that, what is that? Jamadyasya anvayad itarata. Directly, indirectly. That gives a clue how we're to understand Bhagavatam also. And then Krishna himself says, what is that? Parokshavada rishayo paroksham cha mama priyaha. What is expressed, the rishis, they express indirectly. That's also very dear to me, Krishna says. After speaking all this philosophy to Uddhava, trying to get him to understand, putting everything, this category, that category, this fits in this box, that's in that box, this is in another box. Okay, sort everything out, Sankhya, now we understand everything. And by the way, Uddhava, the indirect understanding, that's the real understanding. Which Uddhava himself had to find out by going to Vrindavan. And he's the disciple of Brihaspati, he understood everything in the world, and then he was sent to Vrindavan to understand that everything he understands has got no particular importance whatsoever. And therefore he prays to become some bush in Vrindavan or some clump of grass in Vrindavan. So that's it's all after giving all the in the Vedas, Vedanta Sutra, Bhagavatam is commentary on Vedanta Sutra, give all the philosophy, understand everything, get it in place, and then just throw it all out and come to this understanding. So it's not something that's it's the highest philosophy, and we can say it's beyond philosophy, because it's beyond any philosophy of this world, and it's beyond any philosophy that can be measured, or logically even we can understand it, but it's transcendentally inspired logic. Then?
The soft question is...
Soft question?
The next to this question is
sub-question.
Is why Vyasa has mentioned in Navisantara Upanishad, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Then we are reciting every day the same holy name of the Lord, where we are approaching Srimati Radharani first. Very very precise.
So I don't understand the question.
The question is, in Srimad Bhagavatam, nothing is mentioned, where it is mentioned indirectly. About in the holy Srimati Radharani. And the sub question I'm asking is that it is mentioned in Kali-Sutra.
Hare Krishna mantra.
Hare Krishna mantra.
Yeah, but unless you come to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you won't understand that Hare Krishna is praying to Radha. Linguistically we can find it, or linguistically it can be understood, but that requires Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's explanation. Without Chaitanya, we are Achaitanya. We are unconscious. We are unconscious of reality. Achaitanya midam vishvam. The whole world is Achaitanya. We don't have consciousness of who is Krishna. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes to give us consciousness. Not just actual consciousness. Otherwise, all the Vedic literatures people are reciting. That's why that's saying this Achaitanya vidam vishvam yadi chaitanya vishram nabhajan nabhajanati. Prabodhananda Saraswati has this revolutionary text. He's from a formal sampradaya, Vaishnava sampradaya, Sri Vaishnava sampradaya. Then he came to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's sampradaya. And he composed this, what is that from? What's that, Chaitanya Chandramrita. This verse which I was quoting from Chaitanya Chandramrita. He also compiled the Radha Rasa Sudha Niti. So Chaitanya Chandramrita is just full of all kinds of verses which, practically we have to censor them. We'll get thrown out of everywhere. I mean, never mind about calling, we say that people who are not devotees, they're animals and rascals. But Prabodhananda Saraswati he says things that, what was the use of the Matsya avatar? What good to the world did Vamana avatar do? He was like completely... What is the use of millions of years of worshipping in the temple, the form of the Lord? Just absolutely revolutionary statements. So these statements are there just to emphasize that what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given is so great even compared to what is going on in Vaikuntha or Dwaraka or Mathura, that Prabodhananda Saraswati says it's all useless. That's what he's Tunga Vidya Gopi. So from the gopis' point of view, we're not listening about Vaikuntha or Dwaraka. For them it's painful even to hear the word. Even Mathura is a very painful word for them. So it's insider stuff. It's not to be preached, but it's to be preached. How to preach it? When people are hogs, dogs, camels and asses. And we're going to preach them to go beyond Vaikuntha. Well, they have no interest in even going to Vaikuntha. So first of all we preach, go to Vaikuntha. And then we tell, well, wait a minute, you see this Brihad Bhagavatam with Amrita by Sanatana, go a little bit further. Okay, alright, you came up to Ayodhya. Well, there's a little bit further to go. You can go to Dwaraka. You can go a little bit further to Mathura, and then you can come to Vrindavan. Through Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, don't go through the Nimbaka Sampradaya or the Vallabh Sampradaya. Because then you still won't get what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to. They're also in Vrindavan, they're also talking about Vrindavan, but they don't have what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to give. So this is all censored stuff. I know, because I sent something to BTG and they censored it. I guess they should do, because when that was quoted from Prabhupada's lecture in BTG he quoted Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saying to Vallabhacharya that Swami Jaina Manitare Vaishya Moddegoni, not Vaishya, Vaishya. So this quote was from Prabhupada's lecture, was given in Back to Godhead, and it created a lot of disturbance. So Prabhupada said this kind of thing should not be put in our magazines. So, we don't talk about it publicly because it's not meant for public consumption. But it is meant for followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We should discuss it sometimes, because if we don't, then we're not followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It's in Jaiva Dharma. You'll find in Jaiva Dharma, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, discussions with all Muslims and all kinds of different religious and philosophical viewpoints, and ends up with the gopis in Vrindavan, extremely intimate. Well, that is Jaiva Dharma. That is the ultimate Dharma of the Jiva. When we've gone beyond all this, or maybe it's that, or maybe it's this, or okay, maybe this, that, alright, let's follow Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and then ultimately, what did he come to give? That is the ultimate Jaiva Dharma, which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to give. It's all there in Srimad Bhagavatam. From the very first word. That's why Jiva Goswami gives a translation of the first verse of Bhagavatam completely different from this Janmadhyasya Yataha, means creation, maintenance and destruction. But he gives a completely different description, that the first verse is a description of Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan. So, that's what I said. Did you ever read Srimad Bhagavatam? We read it with Prabhupada's translation, and Prabhupada has given in every verse, in every purport, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's what we have to understand. Then, when we understand that, then we'll understand that, and Prabhupada always stressing, Krishna and pure devotion to Krishna. And when we understand these points, that how great is Radha, because Krishna, by her bhakti, is subordinated, that he becomes subservient to her bhakti, then we can understand. But again, it's not something that we go and shout everywhere, because people do misunderstand very badly. So it is there in every verse of Srimad, in every syllable of Srimad Bhagavatam. But not in the way the Sahajiyas do. They're putting on dresses and pretending they're gopi, men wearing saris, or just pretending that they have gopi bhavs. It's the same thing, like Gaur Kishore. He rejected the imitators, but he accepted Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, who drove into Vrindavan in a car, probably the first person ever to drive in a car in Vrindavan, wearing stitched clothes, Western style coat with leather shoes. He came to teach the so-called Babajis, followers of Rupa Goswami, that as the disciple of Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, he arrived in Vrindavan to teach the people living there how to worship Radharani. They couldn't understand. They still didn't understand. It doesn't seem to be, does it? Rather than putting on a dirty cloth and calling yourself a Bhajananandi, to preach Krishna consciousness all over the world, that is proper service to the mission of Sri Krishna Chaitanya Radha Krishna Nahayanya Rupanuga Janera Jivan. So the real followers of Rupa Goswami are Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, our own Srila Prabhupada. But imitators, they don't understand. And unless we understand these points, how we have to worship Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is Radha Krishna, through the Bhagavatam, then we'll also be bewildered. We'll see some Babaji telling us that you don't have praying, it's all material. We'll become bewildered. If we see all these buildings as something for us to enjoy, and it doesn't matter, we don't have to turn the lights off because ISKCON pays the bill, then we'll be bewildered. We'll think that yes, I should run off to Vrindavan and read Gita Press books and become a Babaji.